Hey everybody, so 5 mistakes noobs make in motorcycle mechanics. First off, let me just point out, I am using the word noob because it actually fits best here and is the least insulting, so please do not be insulted by the context noob. Noob just means newbie, someone who's new to something. And there is nothing wrong with not knowing about a subject if you're new to it, if you're willing to learn about it. You know, people who are new into an industry, they get called newbies because they've got to learn stuff. They know people look after them and help them along the way with the things that you learn as a general rule over time, and those nuggets of information can help you. I was going to say new riders, but if I said new riders, that wouldn't account for people who actually know how to do mechanics because of previous things or engineering, and doing a motorcycle is just easy to them. So I felt like noob was the best way of putting this. Obviously, I've done lots of videos on how to do things to bikes, and I've also done a few videos like this recently that are kind of like things to not do. This is more sort of philosophical. This is like your approach to a job. If you avoid making these approaches to doing work on motorcycles, you won't approach all the mistakes that a lot of people do make. And these are very common things. But understand that I'm not going to say, don't use an 11mm socket on a 10mm head because it's not going to work. This is more your approach. So number 1 on my list, and this is the most important one, is that people, newbies, don't do the maintenance or do the work when something needs fixing. The amount of bikes I have seen out there, which are normally 125s and 50s, that have got pieces hanging off of them, there's indicators broken, there's chains that are way too slack and all that sort of stuff, and you're just like, that's such an easy fix. I wish I could take your bike for like an hour and just sort all that stuff out. I know when you're young things are expensive, but indicators, the risk inherent of someone not knowing where you're turning is that they could drive into you and kill you. So part of what I'm saying here is not only do they not know how to do the work, so they don't do it, so they also don't know what needs doing by definition, like they don't know what's right and wrong. They also don't know the risks associated with not knowing that. Like, I think most people know if your brakes don't work, that's a bit of an issue. If I said you had a few stuck links in your very rusty old chain, you might not think much to it. Both of those could be as dangerous as each other. So when something breaks, fix it. Number 2 on my list is in a similar line, which is that people will get into riding motorcycles, they'll want a motorcycle, they want to own it, they want to ride it, they want to do all these things, but they don't learn anything about mechanics along the way from the beginning. I knew about mechanics and stuff before because I'd done lots of other things in my life, but throughout the time of, yes, I did learn on my own bike, but I had an understanding underneath that helped me and supported me in knowledge that stopped me making so many mistakes. Equally, if I did have a job I wasn't sure about, I would go to someone and get good information from them to have a good idea of what I was supposed to do. But it would be very good for people when you get a bike, if you don't know about motorcycle mechanics, watch some videos on motorcycle mechanics, start to learn the basics. It's those small mistakes through inexperience that cause big headaches, and you can avoid them if you learn first. So preemptively, when you get a bike, I know it's a lot to learn the bike as well, learn mechanics, watch videos. You can watch my videos, you can watch other people's videos. It is difficult to say that all the videos out there are useful, full of good information. I try to keep to the best information I can through experience and actually researching. There is stuff out there which is very wrong, let's just say that. My number 3 is an interesting one because it's 2 extremes, and that is people thinking that every job on a motorcycle is way harder than it actually is, which causes fear in them to not believe that they can do that work, like adjusting chains. Everyone can adjust a chain, you don't need to be mechanically minded, you just need to follow the rules and it'll be fine. The obverse to that is people who think that the job they're going to try and do is super simple, but then discover that replacing your crankshaft bearings is actually not that easy. Now obviously from that, you either get someone who's paying a garage money for jobs that they could do themselves. It's fine to go to a garage and get something done if you're not sure, but if you can learn to like adjust your chain, change your oil, stuff like that, that will save you a chunk of change because that's the majority of the work that's going to get done to your bike. I don't want to take work away from mechanics, but I equally don't think mechanics want to sit there doing chain adjustments all day long. I don't know, I'm not a mechanic, I'm a professional motorcycle mechanic, I'm not going to talk for them, but I imagine they probably want the more interesting things that actually earn in some money. But of course the obverse to that is that people take on jobs which they definitely don't have the knowledge or experience to do. There was no way they were going to know how to put it back together because they didn't know how it worked in the first place, if you know what I mean. What ends up happening then is that the mechanic ends up getting the bike and a box of pieces, and he hates you even more than the chain adjustment guy. So actually, maybe it is the you know what I'm saying? Number 4 on my list is, I have noticed this with the younger generations rather than the older generations, they don't appreciate that a motorcycle is going to need maintenance. This is not a phone, this is not a PC which has, you know, you build it and it's just great for years. A bit of cleaning here and there and it's years. This is not what this is. It will break. And for that reason, it would be a good idea to buy a basic set of tools. And I've done videos on this as well. If you go through my playlist, Tips for New Riders, you're going to find everything in there and mechanical explanations. There's tons of stuff to learn. About what the basic tool set you need is. It's not hugely expensive and you can build it up slowly, and then when you get to a situation where you need a specialist tool, you just have to buy that one tool, opposed to buying all of the standard tools and the specialist tool. So buy tools before you need them for when you do need them. The amount of people that will say, I would do it, but I don't have any tools. You know, £10 or £20 a month on tools is a good way of building up a tool collection. I would personally, and I'm not affiliated with them or sponsored or anything, would say that Halfords Professional is a place I'm happy to spend my money on tools, because in my experience, the quality is good enough and they have a lifetime guarantee, and they also come in bundle deals around Christmas and stuff. Like, I got my spanners and my screwdrivers just together quite cheaply, but they've still got a lifetime guarantee on them that if they break, I get a new one. I, in theory, never need to buy another 10mm spanner in my life, unless I lose it, and then I can't return it. Do they cover for entire loss? What if you have a very small amount left? My number 5 continues on with this sort of subject of tools, and that is also going slightly back to an earlier one, which is owning the tools, but not knowing how to use them. It's all very well and good owning the tools, but if you don't know how you're supposed to actually apply those to use, and I don't just mean a spanner and a screwdriver, although, do you know how to make sure a screwdriver is fitting properly, that you won't strip a screw? Do you know techniques of how you would hammer one in? Do you know how to get a screw unstuck that is seized? Things like this is stuff that you need to learn preemptively. Understand what tools do and don't work, what you use them for, what you don't use them for. Like, you know, torque settings. They're really important, because you over torque a bolt, which is normally what most people will do. They won't under torque bolts, because when you torque something up, you can sometimes be left thinking, is that really tight enough? And it is. But other people are like, no, tighter than that, and they'll snap off a bolt in an engine casing or something like that, and it's an absolute nightmare. But also, don't use the wrong tool for a job. You know, if you need to have a specialist tool to get something apart, don't try and pry it with a screwdriver and stuff like that, which of course people want to do because of impatience. That is the leading thing and mistake that's being made with bikes, is impatience. You may have noticed recently with my DR, I'm very patient as to how long it takes to fix this thing. So patient. So patient. However, I am patient enough to wait 4 days to get the things I need to make the tool I need to do a job. I'm not even going to try and do that job until I've got the tool to do it, because I know if I try and do it the way you can do it, which is not necessarily the best way, it's going to lead to more issues. Plus also I'm going to be filming that and showing myself doing it. So I am going to want to be doing this the best way I can, and also to give the best information to you. So point kind of here is, you know, having the tools is one thing, knowing to use them is another thing, which kind of does reflect back to learning stuff in the beginning. So my bonus number 6 is asking people online how to fix your bike. Now, obviously, as a motorcycle video creator, this is something that affects me a lot. I get a lot of people asking me why their bike isn't running. Now, for some reason, people think that it is possible to, in a non-technical way, without them actually knowing how a bike works, they're going to tell me why the bike is broken by saying it's just not working, and somehow miraculously, without them even telling me what model it is, I'm going to be able to tell them how to fix it. This is obviously not a reality that is ever going to happen, unless it's been one of the strange small scenarios where someone's had a problem with a bike that I owned, and it was one of those little things that those bikes particularly do. And when they said XYZ, I was like, whoa, 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 I know exactly what that is. Go and do that. And it was. But that is very rare that that happens. Even if you ask a mechanic, a master mechanic, he will most likely say to you, I'm not going to give you my opinion on it until I can touch it and see it and feel the thing for myself. I'm not going off of your explanation, because the explanation I'm getting is from someone who doesn't know what they're looking at. Someone who does know what they're looking at may not explain it that way. So as I say, there is nothing wrong with not knowing anything, and there is nothing wrong for asking for advice from people who know what they're talking about. How you gauge if someone knows what they're talking about is another thing. Your mate, who's owned 125 and is 17, does not know as much as, say, for instance, Honda. You know what I mean? There are a lot of young, very enthusiastic people out there, And the problem with youth and enthusiasm is that it's fantastic. It's so good, youth and enthusiasm. I mean, it gets people motivated to actually do things and go and learn stuff. But the problem is when they don't have that element of, I'm enthusiastic and I love this, but I don't actually know that much. And I probably shouldn't give someone advice on this because I wouldn't know myself. That comes up a lot. And with that, they are far more likely to suggest a riskier option if it's going to happen to your bike than they would if it was on their bike, for instance. Like, oh, sure, yeah, we can change the cams. No worries. I've never done it before, but it'd be easy. If you said it was on their bike, they're probably like, no, I'm going to get my dad's mate to help me with it. If people would just only speak on a subject when they know to be sure of the things that they've said to be relatively true and trustworthy through experiment and trial and research, we wouldn't have so much guff being said in the world that misleads people into doing silly things with their bikes, if you know what I mean. So there you go, there is 5 mistakes, or 6 mistakes that noobs make. And I say this is not to insult anyone or try and put anyone down. We are all born dumb as hell. You wouldn't put a doctor on their first rounds into a triple heart bypass and say, quick, stop the bleeding. It would be ridiculous. But you give them a few years and they get all the training, they're the person that's doing it anyway. But also remember that most of the people that can give you good advice have made a lot of those mistakes themselves. I am not saying I'm perfect. I have made many mechanical mistakes in my time and I've learnt from every single one of them. But I do feel now like I'm getting closer to the point that I actually understand what's going on. And I feel like I can hand on a little bit of that information, even if it is a more philosophical approach than physically telling you how to do something. Well, there we go. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do smash the like out of the button. If you are new here and you haven't subscribed, or you are old here and you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that because I'm very close to 100k and I'd like to just put the button on the wall. After that, the number won't mean a thing to me, thankfully. I just want the button. The more important one, though, is the people that make this channel possible, and that is my patrons who support this channel for as little as $1 a month. That is access to everything, part of the Q&As, Discord. So yeah, if you want to join that, links in the description. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, and that will probably be working on this thing.